Hook around and stuff. This is about cartridge replacement on a wide set Victorian style two-handle bathroom faucet, and there are several videos on the internet about how to replace the cartridge. But what I want to do is add some to that. If you're going to do it, you probably want to look at several videos about how to do it. And what I'm going to explain is what you don't want to do, which is what I did. And in the following videos, I'm going to summarize it for you right now, is cartridge placement is not difficult. If you have an Allen wrench that'll fit the handle assembly, you undo that, you pull the handle assembly off. Then you take a pipe wrench or whatever and loosen up the nut that holds the cartridge in place. You pay attention to how the cartridge is oriented. There is a little piece that slips in and out of there. They sell the same cartridge for the hot and the cold. It's the same cartridge. And I think it's the same cartridge in a lot of Delta faucets. But you have to pay attention when you put it back together. And here's a reminder: set your cartridge in and then take the handle set and put it down over and make sure that it's opening and closing the right way. You can get the cartridge in the wrong way, so the handles won't work like they're supposed to. So once you set the cartridge in, before you put that nut back on, you want to put your handle back on the assembly, get it to slide down over the shaft of the cartridge, and make sure you have the right orientation. Now that little plastic piece that fits in there, that is different for the left side, or the hot, and the right side, which is the cold. You have to put it in a different place. So pay attention when you put the cartridges back in there and together. Second point on cartridges: make sure you replace the little spring and rubber seal down inside of the pipe fitting. Don't just replace the cartridge. And there's a little spring underneath of a rubber seat down inside here, down inside the threaded pipe that you'll see sticking out. Okay, unloose the ring, take the cartridge, take that off. Pull your cartridge out. You may be able to do it by hand, or you might have to use a little pliers to pull it straight up. Make sure you can take a picture of it if you want before you start, on the right side and left side, and that'll give you some element of orientation. Okay. Replace the seals. Seals, there's a whole bunch of different seals. Make sure you get the right one. In my case, it was wide at the bottom, narrow at the top, and the top, where it was narrow, is where the seal actually went down over. You put that down in the hole that's in the cartridge, down in the threaded pipe, and then you want to push it down with your thumb, make sure it's nice and flat and it's installed in there correctly. Okay, so make sure you put the handle on the cartridge, and make sure it turns the correct way to open it up and close it before you put the nut back on. Okay, so you're going to put a new cartridge in, you're going to put new seats down. They sell a pack, and it's 2, so you need that whole pack for the one faucet, the left side and right side. Okay, and you put that nut back on, you tighten it up good and tight, and then you should be able to put the handle back on. Okay, here's the part I'm trying to get to. Everything I've described, although I've added a little detail, you can see on other parts, video parts. The point I was trying to make there is replace the seals and make sure you get the cartridge orientation correct for left, for hot and cold. Take a picture of them first, whatever you got to do, but put that handle back on there and move it around. Make sure that the cartridge is oriented correctly and the seat in the piping before you put the nut back on, and then you want to tighten it back up good. Now, here's a point that I'm going to show you a video about. In my case, I was dumb. The thing had been leaking for some time. It was all kind of residue around the chrome ring at the bottom of the threaded pipe that sits on the countertop of the sink. I decided I would take that off and clean around it. Well, there was a fiber washer. It's like a O-ring. It sets in there that I used to pick, and I pried it up and I got it out, and I took the chrome away, and yeah, no problem, you know, and I cleaned around it, and then I put the chrome ring back on, and I tried to get that fiber to go back in there, and it just wouldn't do it. It's like impossible to get it to shove down in there. There's a small cutout on the threaded pipe where this fiber ring sets in, and the point being is that fiber ring holds the whole threaded pipe assembly up against, that's what keeps it held up against the countertop at the top. That's the only thing holding it up there, is that fiber ring against that chrome base piece. I wound up taking it out. I couldn't get it back in, so therefore I had to take the whole, I want to call it seat, out from underneath of the sink to be able to properly get it back in. And when I did that, then it was no problem. So here's some video about what I had to do and some more tricks and things about changing the Delta faucet. That happened to be a Victorian for me, but it's probably standard for Delta faucets in general that have wide set, two handles, the left cold and the hot. They're not visually attached to the faucet itself. They stand separately from the downspout or port or whatever you want to call it, actual where the water comes out. Okay, and I'll follow this up with some video and then maybe a short one at the end. Do not take that fiber ring out of the chrome base. You don't want to do that unless you intend to take the whole assembly out underneath, and that's not fun, and it's not fun to get it back in. Okay, this is Uncle Ron's stuff. This has to do with a Delta faucet. That's it for here. Uncle Ron's stuff. This is about replacing the cartridge on this particular Delta faucet. And it's not hard to do if you don't do it wrong like Ron did. And what Ron did was, I wanted to get down under here and clean it and see what was going on, and I made a mistake and took that off, and now it's a pain to put it back on. And I will show you what I had to do to put it back together. This is where I am on putting it back together, and I will continue in another part to explain how you have to do this, because it's a pain. And what I did was I had removed this guy. Now it wants to sit in there okay, but here's what this is what it looks like if you take it all the way out. It has a rubber piece that sits down over it, like that. And then this ring, fiber ring, sets in here and locks in a place on the shaft here. And if you do it like I did and pick this fiber out, then the cartridge goes down in like such. locks in a hole. But then when you try to put this on, the fiber comes off. The fiber comes off, and then you can't wind up getting this to thread. So that's a mistake I made, and I'll show you how I had to how I fixed it. And so if you're going to replace the cartridge, do not take this piece off. It's got this fiber ring around it that I pried off. Big mistake. You won't be able to get it back on that way. It's just like near impossible. So don't do that. And if you do, then I'm going to show you a video how to get it back on again. That's enough for right now. Okay, more Uncle Ronald stuff. This is what comes out from underneath the sink, sets up in here, and on the right here it says front. I don't know if you can see it very well, but this is the front. It has a label on it, and the difference is where the spout sets up in the port outflow. And anyway, what I had to do was, to get this thing out, I had to loosen up these guys, which keep the whole assembly tight to the underside of the cabinet. And they were all green, corroded, and I had to, once I had the tops off up here, then you could, and I took off the hot and cold inlet. This side, the left side, is the hot, this is the cold. Again, this is the front of it, and it should have a label on it. Anyway, this would take the hoses off. This whole thing just came straight out. This, you see, has a rubber grommet on it and fits up in the discharge line hose. Anyway, I've cleaned these up a little bit. Get a better view here. I've cleaned both of these up so that I can turn these by hand and tighten them up. Okay. Now the reason I had to do this once again was there was no way to get this piece come down over top on the top side of the cabinet and get the fiber washer around the plate here, and then get that screw that holds the cartridge in down. So I have now cleaned these shafts up, and I have it so, and I've applied some silicone grease to both of the shredded pieces. And you can see that I can move these fasteners up and down by hand. Now, I had to use a pipe wrench to get these to come loose to start with. They were limed in. I have a lot of whatever, calcium, whatever it is, in the water here. And so I had to take a pipe wrench to the round part here to get it to move. If you try to use these tabs for removal, they're not strong enough. You're going to break those off. So you can see I chewed up the fiber edge of this using the pipe wrench, but nonetheless I got them loose, and I've worked them all the way up and down several times, and they move pretty easy now. When you put it back in and get everything put back together, of course, you'll have to use a screwdriver or something to push these up to get them relatively tight against the flush bottom of the countertop or sink top, whatever you're doing. So you can see I think I'm pretty much ready to go. I've got these guys on, and I'm going to put them all the way to the bottom, and that's what you need. Put all of these two guys all the way down to the bottom, so you have the most amount of thread sticking up through the sink top to be able to put on the bottom portion and get the fiber tab to stick where it fits, and there is a groove like right here someplace. It's hard to see, but there's definitely a groove. Maybe it's right there, but there's a groove in here that the fiber tab is supposed to sit in, that keeps the base down on this piece. And then when you put the cartridge in, you have to put that big lock nut down over top of it. And the only way you can do that, if you've taken it off and did like me, is to take this piece out and move these all the way down to the bottom. Now when you go to put it back in, I'm not going to try to do it underneath the counter, but when you put it back in, you got to use it so this is the front, and you can see why there is a front and a rear. They're not the same. This inlet port right here is going to stick up into the discharge or whatever that thing is called. And once you get it up in there, this piece here will kind of sit in the, there's a little slot in the discharge tube where it will kind of sit in there. And setting is really all you need, because you're going to put that top on. The fiber is going to go down and push it down and where it belongs on both sides. And then you can put the cartridges in and proceed to tighten down that lock nut. And if you look here, you see you have to come pretty far down before you get to the, and right here is, it's here someplace. I think this wide section, I can't show you very well, but there is a wide section here in the threading where that fiber washer goes that keeps the top that's down over here in place. And then you can put the cartridge in, then you can screw down the top. Okay, this is ready to go back in. What I haven't done, again, I've already put Teflon tape on, which is easier to do when it's out and try to do it when it's up in the, underneath of the sink. And I put silicone grease on these threads just to make it easier to tighten up. And I think I'm ready to go. I can put it back up in there. The only thing I haven't done yet is replace the rubber that you see down in there. There's a spring under that and rubber, and I need to go get that. There's one on both sides, and that may be leaking as well. In my case, the cartridge definitely had water coming out the top. It would do it now and then, and that's the reason I got into this whole thing. But once again, if you're just doing a cartridge replacement, you don't need to worry about the base. Don't take the base off. Don't take that fiber ring out of there, because it's like near impossible to get it back in without having to take this out. And this is not a major piece of work to take it out. And once you understand how the thing was assembled, it probably came looking like this. They set it up in there, the thread stuck up so high you could put that the piece of chrome down over it. You could get that fiber washer to easily set in there. You did it on both sides, so it kind of self-supported up in there. You might have even turned some of these up a little bit to tighten it up a little bit, and then they went ahead and put the cartridge in, used the lock nut to keep the cartridge down, and they put the handle unit on and so on. Anyway, this is ready to go. I didn't take all of the lime off. You see the blue greeny stuff everywhere, but I did take it off most of the threads, and I put silicone grease on just to make it easier to go up and down. Once I get up in there, I have to tighten these two white flanges back against the base of the sink top. Okay, that's where I am right now. Again, I hope this helps you. You have no choice. You can't get enough thread sticking up to get that fiber piece back in there correctly, so you're going to have to take this out. Okay, I've loosely put the underneath, and this is where you see this fiber ring that goes around this piece. that has to go down over here, and I just dropped it out. Okay, the final stuff on the Delta faucet cartridge replacement. The other one, I don't know why I didn't have a final video, but I was right at the point where I was installing the whole up underneath the tube and putting the chrome piece back down on to latch it in place. And from up underneath, that chrome piece and the fiber washer or O-ring, if you want to call it that, fell relatively easy to get in. It's not a problem because you can push up high enough on the underneath brass works to get it up high enough that it will fit right down on there. Okay, so I had it up in there installed. I put the cartridges in. I made sure that I put the handle on first, made sure they're the right position, and I screwed the lock nut down. Everything looked good, and worked like it's supposed to. And at nighttime when I went into bed, I noticed that it was dripping. The faucet was dripping water out of the spout. I call it spout. Well, this is not good. So I said, okay, well, one of those rubber seals is not right or something. So I took the handles off, and I unscrewed just the cartridge. Took the cartridge out, and I made sure that the rubber seals were down in there properly. Put the cartridge back in, tightened it up, put the handle back on, and indeed, that took care of the leak out the spout. And I don't trust in nothing, so the next day I come in and I hadn't put all the stuff back underneath the cabinet yet, and when I put my hand up in there, I found water. And so, well, where's this coming from? Maybe I hadn't cranked the water supply lines tight enough on the under the brass works of the faucet, so I tightened those up. And anyway, I finally turned on left and right handle to make sure I could see where the drip was coming from. It was coming out of the spout. Again, there are the hot and the cold, and there is a tube running between them that sets up. It kind of looks like there's like this: hot, hot, cold, and then this one, this piece. There's a tube that goes up and just mates up into the spout. And on the end of the tube, there's a little teeny rubber washer. It was leaking right there. And I had not replaced that rubber washer. I didn't think about doing it. And so luckily, when I went out and looked at my washer set, I had one. So the point being is, if you're going to take that whole assembly out of there, if you screw up like I did and had to take it out to reset the rings and the base chrome at the top, make sure you replace that rubber washer on that spout line that goes straight up. I already told you it's important that you put the brass works in so the front side says front or something, that's oriented correctly. But what I didn't tell you was that you need to replace that rubber washer. It'd been in there for 20 years. So by me pulling it out and putting it back in and pulling it obviously was on its last legs. It glued itself up in there, but when I took it out, it was injured. Okay, that's the end of it. If you make the mistake, you can fix it. You just have to take all the stuff out underneath. This is on the Ron stuff, and this had to do with the Delta wide set, 2-handle hot and cold with a separate spout. And my particular model was a Victorian, and it's all in chrome, and it works fine now. It just took me a while to figure it out. Today is the 19th of December. It's getting close to Christmas. Merry Christmas, everybody, and hopefully this helps, and you don't make the mistake of taking that chrome piece off the bottom of the faucet.